Joe Rogan irresponsibly has a successful podcast. Therefore, 270 doctors are condemning him having conversations on that podcast. So they're not really doctors, some of them are vets, and others just people. Hello there, you 4.7 million awakening wonders. If you're not yet subscribed, subscribe and join us in the comments below. And I know you ain't even seen the video yet. And you think, don't you tell me to subscribe before you've seen anything. But I know you're going to enjoy this because we are, of course, talking about Joe Rogan, having people on to talk about the controversial subject, coronavirus, the pandemic and the regulations around it, which do seem to be changing at the moment. And we'll be doing videos on that. So watch out for that. Also, and in response to that, I think the mainstream media coordinated a response to condemn Joe Rogan and his guest for being irresponsible. But could there be other motivations? Primarily, they don't like that Joe Rogan is so successful. So I was thinking, why don't you sort of see Joe Rogan's success and think, well, I suppose we could do that. We could discuss things at length, allow alternative opinions to be openly discussed, or we could really try and destroy Joe Rogan. Part of Joe Rogan's success may be predicated on the fact that people trust him, and part of that trust might come from the fact that he admits when he is wrong openly. Look at this tweet from Joe Rogan. If anyone was going to make me look dumb on the podcast, I'm glad it's at Josh Zepps, because I love him and he's awesome. What's appealing about that is that it means that you can go to Joe Rogan and think, well, if this guy's wrong about something, he's going to be open and admit it. And I've been on that show a couple of times, and Joe Rogan, as you know, because I mention it about once a week, is a fan of our channel. And what I will say is that when I went on there, he was so encouraging about podcast. Like, you should do a podcast, you should do stuff, you should do stuff. Compare that with the mainstream media going, this guy's being successful. He's challenging some of our corporate relationships with big companies. Right, get some people who are doctors. We can't get doctors. Vets? The media last week widely circulated an open letter to Spotify, allegedly co-signed by 270 doctors, that demanded the company take action against podcast host Joe Rogan. On open letters as well, a little bit pompous. Dear everybody, we think this and this. Just write a normal letter and send it in the post or an email. When do you think this is? 1812. Mr. Darcy, you've offended me there. That lace shirt is provocative. But it turns out that the majority of those signatories cannot legally practice medicine on their own. Like, if you're criticising someone for their credibility, at least your own open letter should be co-signed by actual doctors. The whole topic and thrust of the epistle was legitimacy and credibility. Can't get any doctors? No, don't matter, get anyone to sign it. Aren't we criticising Joe Rogan because we think that he's not credible? Yeah, it don't matter. It shows you what the actual objective is. The actual objective is, we want to be in charge again. Like CNN, these companies used to be regarded with some respect. You know, CNN, this is the news. And they used to think, pfft. The letter claimed Joe Rogan has a concerning history of broadcasting misinformation with huge views about the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Joe Rogan has repeatedly spread misleading and false claims on his podcast, provoking distrust in science and medicine. I don't know that it provokes distrust in science and medicine. I think it provokes distrust in corporatism, whether those corporations are pharmacological or media oriented. And I would say skepticism and personal agency rather than, mistrust. You could say like, what do you want? For people to be blindly obedient? And the answer to that, if you're the mainstream media and the government and big business, is yes. You want people to be blindly obedient. And blind obedience requires a lack of conversation and discourse and consideration and contemplation and open communication and transparency. All things that podcast is good at providing. I don't think that Joe Rogan is a perfect person, given that he is an actual person. But what he is more reliable than the people that have the audacity to criticise him with illegitimate signatories. Imagine if the mainstream media took a leaf out of Joe Rogan's book and had guests on their shows that had a contrary opinion. We're getting on Robert Malone and Peter McCulloch and some of these people that Joe Rogan had. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with that data. Or wait a second, it says here that you can get it twice. Hold on, we've got information that suggests that it is more effective in stuff. They could have that conversation. The censorship and the omission of that kind of conversation doesn't make me think, oh, thank God, they've saved me the time of hearing any alternative. It makes me think, you've seen that reel of how many shows Pfizer sponsors.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
In a world where there are many variables, where it's difficult to find the truth, the variable that wins out is commercial interest and financial interest. The letter stated, this is not only a scientific or medical concern, it's a sociological issue of devastating proportions, and Spotify is responsible for allowing this activity to thrive on its platform. It's so amazing when they do stuff like that. We had some criticism, I can't remember the name of the website, but it's one of them ones that you'd expect would do that, and they went, we noticed that YouTube has still not demonetized the video. Like those little snitches, those little wet mimsies, those little nincompoops, like they're trying to like sort of snitch him out to Spotify. Spotify, you're on our team, aren't you? Like the underlying real emotion is, oh my God, this guy's doing better than us. This guy's doing better than us. This isn't fair. Stop it. We used to be in charge. Hey, like just admit it. Just admit it and learn from it. Because they can't have long conversations, because the commercials won't allow it, because they can't be open about certain aspects of this complex issue, because the relationships with certain corporations and the government won't allow it. What you get is this sort of streamlined, disingenuous spear. Take the example of the Wuhan lab leak theory, which increasingly seems like the more likely origin for the coronavirus pandemic. At the beginning, because of their alliances with the government and Big Pharma, presumably, and now emails have been leaked that strongly support this idea, they went, no way, couldn't have come from a lab, more evidence it came from a lab, more evidence, okay, could be, maybe it is. You know, if from the beginning they said, we don't know, maybe it comes from these wet markets, or possibly it comes from this laboratory where they're doing gain of function research, then you get, oh, these guys are sort of up for a bit of a chat on the subject. Let's see what they've got to say next week. But because over time, they have taught us what to think of them. By their fruit shall we know them. We know what the fruits are. The fruits are rotten. The media circulated the letter like wildfire. In The Guardian, menace to public health. 270 doctors criticise Spotify over Joe Rogan's podcast. Check this, all the headlines implicate Spotify in it. That's like corporate cancel pressure. Forbes, doctors, scientists petition Spotify to stop Joe Rogan experience COVID-19 misinformation. They're trying to create that pressure. Unfortunately for them, there's another little thing that Spotify care about called money. And because you've created a system that's built around finance and profit and money, you're going to have a little bit of an obstacle to surmount. Look at this, it goes on. Rolling Stone, a menace to public health. Doctors demand Spotify puts an end to COVID lies on Joe Rogan experience. New York Post, Joe Rogan is a menace to public health. 270 doctors and experts tell Spotify. I mean, doesn't it concern you that every single one of those organisations uses the exact same format of headline? Joe Rogan, menace, Spotify. None of them don't mention Spotify. Now, like, I'm not suggesting in a conspiratorial way that there is one person in, like, you know, smoking a cigar or whatever. I don't even know what the cliches are. Is it a lizard? I don't know. Like, I'm not suggesting that, but they have all got the same agenda. They've all sort of fell their way into the same set of words. If it's not one person directing them, then they've saved themselves a salary because they're doing it automatically. A quick inspection of the letter's signatories reveals that the majority are not legally permitted to practice medicine. I can't legally call myself a doctor, but I will look at that toe. Is that a toe? What are the ones on your hand again? The majority are not legally permitted to practice medicine unsupervised. I like the idea. Well, you can practice medicine, but come in here. Oh, God, I'm busy. I'm doing my own operation. Okay, so the knee bone's connected to the ankle bone. No, the tibula's in the middle of that, you idiot. Oh, God, and beep, that's my patient. While a significant number are not even direct medical providers. Help, I need a doctor. Wait, I'll call you one. The range of credentials among the signatories include 82 medical doctors, well done, 5 doctors of osteopathic medicine, a little bit of a drop-off, a dozen nurse practitioners, nearly 100 PhDs. Finish your schoolwork, finish your homework before you start signing letters. PhD candidates, that includes me, I could do that. Registered nurses, veterinarians, they shouldn't have allowed them on there, should they? I mean, particularly when they had the gall to criticise ivermectin for being horse-paced again and again and again. A dentist. I've been doing fillings all morning, and I'm sick and tired of just how well Joe Rogan's podcast is doing. A psychologist, physician's assistants. I've been assisting this physician all morning. Oh, sorry. There you go. There's the forceps. A biochemist, master's students, research associates, a pharmacist. People just down to chemist now. A COVID-19 lab supervisor, medical students, public health advisors, teachers, engineers, social workers, and even a podcast host. They didn't ask me to help. In other words, the list is composed of an eclectic group of people, some of whom are qualified medical experts. What generally qualifies a person to contribute any substantive perspective to a given field of research is by earning the highest degree necessary in that field and by having direct experience in the field. For medicine in the United States, this is most often the MD or DO, considering one of these degrees is required to obtain a license to practice medicine without supervision. Rather than seeking to silence voices that contradict the narrative, all views should be weighed equally and then only discounted if they are examined fairly with a methodology appropriate to the field. This is why, for example, academic journals typically employ a blind peer review process. After all, scholars and experts who are members of professional societies routinely gather in meetings to share new ideas. Some are accepted, others are rejected, but all are allotted the opportunity to be heard if they are written within the bounds of the field. That's if the intention and objective is to advance medicine, advance the wellness of humankind, advance the principles embodied in the Hippocratic Oath and other sub-theological ideas that underwrite medicine. But what we've got here is an anti-free speech movement, a corporate oppression of a vital voice in the public conversation. So once you recognize something for what it is, once you see how these organizations actually operate, all of those questions and doubts magically disappear. What that headline should be is, mainstream media annoyed by success of person who will not toe the line. It's essentially, the whole of that letter is, no, what an absolute absurd story. What a clear demonstration of the principles that underwrite the, well, as up until recently, the dominant voices in our media, because thankfully, Joe Rogan's success seems like something that is insurmountable and here to stay as long as he continues to operate according to the principles which seem to organically come to him: transparency, discourse, openness, admission of fallibility, all things that the media and human beings, like wherever we're operating, should just have as ordinary principles by which we live, and we can be a part of that conversation. All of us can participate, we can be honest, and we don't need doctors and dentists and nurses and candlestick makers to co-sign our rhetoric. Though if you are a doctor or a nurse or an MD, please hit me up in the comments below, join this conversation, make sure you've got some co-signers that come from bloody good backgrounds though, and subscribe to the channel, pass it around among your friends, get other people to sign up to this channel if indeed you enjoy it. If you had fun watching this video, please watch this one, or maybe have a little look at this guy. There are playlists of wonder which will advance your understanding on these topics. Well, certainly they've advanced mine, reading this stuff and learning from you and your comments. That's why it's so important that you stay in connection. If you want to join my mailing list, please click below and I'll tell you what live stuff I'm doing and some really exciting things that are coming up soon. Stay free.